Hello everybody and welcome to our council meeting Wednesday the 15th of September 2021. Live streaming. As the meeting chair, I give my consent for the open council meeting to be streamed live, recorded and published online in accordance with council's live streaming policy and governance rules. The chair and or the CEO have the discretion and the authority at any time to direct the termination of interruption of live streaming. Such direction will be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behaviour and or comments. Thank you. Virtual meeting statement. The COVID-19 Omnibus Bill 2020 provision allows council meeting attendance by electronic means. The requirement of the meeting being open to the public is satisfied by the meeting being streamed live to council's internet. In the event of any technical issues with the live stream, the meeting will be adjourned. Councillors are deemed as being in attendance if they can hear proceedings, they can see other members in attendance and can be seen by other members, and they can be heard out loud to speak. Just a friendly reminder to please turn your mobile phones to mute, or in case of an emergency, just turn it down or into silent mode. I'd like now to read the statement of acknowledgement. Bass Coast Shire Council acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders as the first Australians and recognise that they have a unique relationship with land and water. Council also recognises that we are situated on the lands of the traditional owners, members of the Kulin Nation, who have lived here for thousands of years. We offer our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. I now ask Councillor Whelan to read the councillor statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All members of this council pledge to the Bass Coast Shire community to consider every item listed on this agenda based on the individual merits of each item, without bias or prejudice, by maintaining an open mind and disregarding councillors' personal interests so as to avoid any conflict with our public duty. Any councillor having a conflict of interest in an item will make a proper prior disclosure to the meeting and will not participate in the debate or vote on the issue.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Presents and apologies. I have no apologies and we're all on screen. Declarations of interest. I declare a declaration of interest in a closed council item later on in the meeting. Confirmation of minutes. Can I have somebody move and second that the minutes from council meeting held on the 18th of August 2021 be confirmed? Councillor Kent and seconded Councillor Bauer. All in favour? Councillors Tassari, Kent, Brooks, Lark, Laserve, Lang, Halstead, Whelan and Bauer. Carried. Public question time. So we have quite a few questions here today. So I thank you all for taking the time to send these questions in. So question one, and sorry, as previous in all meetings, I will read out the questions and our CEO, Ms. Aliwasky, shall read out the responses. So question one, there is two parts to the question. Dogs on leash. While there are a couple of off-leash dog parks in Inverloch, none are fenced. Wonthaggi and Cape Patterson both have fully fenced dog parks. Will council consider providing a fully fenced dog park in Inverloch? And question two, why isn't there more rangers, monitoring and fines issued to dog owners who continue to allow their dogs off-leash on Inverloch beaches and neighbourhood streets? It's against the law and nothing's being done.
Through the Mayor, Council has prepared a draft domestic animal management plan and consultation has confirmed a need for further work on off-leash dog parks across the Shire. This will be considered in the implementation of the plan once considered by Council. Council's community safety team adopt a balanced approach between education and enforcement throughout the year. Enforcement activity occurs across the Shire and infringement notices are issued. Funding for additional patrols has been provided in the 21-22 budget over the peak summer period.
Question 2 is from Melissa Dagg and the subject is San Remo footpaths. Council has announced the stage 1 for a concrete footpath from Backbeach Road to Pennywells Drive East, 0.6 kilometres along Shetland Heights Road. San Remo will take 3 months to construct, ending in December 2021. When will the 0.8 kilometres from Potters Hill Road to Pennywells Drive, stage 2 footpath be completed? Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, both sections of the footpath are expected to be completed in early 2022.
Question 3 is also from Melissa and its topic is Pioneer Bay Roads and Drainage. Would Council please provide a detailed explanation as to why the Pioneer Bay Road and Drainage upgrade has taken so long, years to complete?
Through the Mayor, the project timeline for an urban road and drainage upgrade project is 4 years. An application to VCAT was received after Council declared the special charge scheme at Pioneer Bay, and this resulted in an additional 12 months on the time frame.
Thanks, Ms Wasty. Question 4 from Lucy Ann Caldwell. Topic is aquatics. I would like Council to provide the results of the survey conducted by Bass Coast during July 21 for aquatics requirements for Phillip Island and the Bass Coast. Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, the results will be made available on our website once adopted by Council.
Question 5 is from Val Mayman and Keith Thomas, and its subject is Bayview Avenue, Tenby Point. When is the block at number 80, Bayview Avenue, Tenby Point, going to be maintained? 12 months ago, I was told that it would be, but nothing has been done. After an initial look by a worker, it was agreed that dead gum trees need to be removed. Part 2, stormwater drainage in Bayview Avenue, Tenby Point is practically non-existent. Water runs out of the farms, which doesn't drain away and often runs back onto our property. Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, thanks for your questions. Officers are currently gathering information and reviewing your concerns. A full response to both questions will be provided in the minutes.
Question 6 is from Michael Guz, and its topic is notice of motion process. Notice of motion F1, F2 and F3 include officers' comments, all prior to the signatures of the councillors. Why is council officers trying to influence open debate by including the comments prior to debate voting?
Through the Mayor, the officers' comments section makes provision for officers to highlight matters to support council make an informed decision.
Question 7 is from Stacey Dagg and its topic is quarterly financial report. It has been 2.5 months since the end of the financial year ending on the 30th of June 2021. Why has it been so long for council's 4th quarterly financial report to be published? Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, the Local Government Act 2020 requires council's end-of-year financial statements and performance statement to be audited by the 30th of September. The audit work is still being undertaken and this information will be presented to a council meeting on the 22nd of September 2021.
Question 8 is from Graham Jolly. The subject is climate emergency. Could council declare a climate emergency on the 9th of the 9th, 2019 and a climate action plan on the 19th of May 2021, would council provide critical measurement for greenhouse gas emissions, CO2, for 2020, which is critical to reach the net zero emissions level by 2030? Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, total greenhouse gas emissions from council operations in 2019-2020 were 13,736 tonnes of CO2 equivalent. Council has committed to undertaking the next inventory of community emissions, i.e. for the whole municipality, in 2024-25 as part of the mid-term review of the Climate Change Action Plan.
Question 9 is also from Graham Jolly. Subject is landfill waste disposal. Would council please provide tonnage of landfill waste disposal red bin figure for the 30th of the 6th, 2020? Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, in the 2019-2020 financial year, 4,777.48 tonnes of material was collected via curbside red bins and disposed to landfill.
Question 10 is from Kim Lightfoot and Malcolm Pinkerton, and its subject is also landfill waste disposal. Would council please provide the landfill tonnage for waste disposal red bin for the year 2018?
Through the Mayor, in the 2018 calendar year, 4,466.83 tonnes of material was collected via curbside red bins and disposed to the landfill.
Question 11 is also from Kim Lightfoot and Malcolm Pinkerton, and its subject is climate emergency. Would council please provide the sea level figures for the 9th of the 9th, 2019, when council declared a climate emergency? Ms Wastage.
Through the Mayor, council relies on recognised scientific authorities for up-to-date data on climate change, including sea levels. According to the CSIRO and Bureau of Meteorology's State of the Climate Report 2020, global sea level has risen by around 25 centimetres since 1880. Furthermore, sea level rise is accelerating, reaching a rate of over 3 centimetres per decade in recent decades.
Question 12 is from Claire Diffie, and its subject is waste disposal services. Would council please provide the date of audit of its waste disposal services to Bass Coast Shire will be available to ratepayers? And question part 2, when will the council inform ratepayers they will conduct a Shire-wide survey for understanding of waste disposal pickup services provided to the ratepayers by council? Ms Wastley.
Through the Mayor, in relation to curbside collections, transfer station operations and landfill management, council monitors and reports on service standards, compliance with environmental regulations and responses to customer requests. Officers will contact Ms Diffie to seek further clarification on her inquiry. A Shire-wide survey of curbside waste service users is not currently scheduled. Any future survey would likely be conducted during the development of an update to Council's waste management strategy.
Question 13 is from Anne Gross, and the subject is Notice of Motion F3. Island Ward Councillor Ronnie Bauer notice of motion for today's council meeting read the 3 extra bin pickups over our high tourist season leaves me quite perplexed as to how council can state that the 3 extra bin pickups will cost 500 to 600,000 when the entire year's contract 26 pickups costs 1.2 million. Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, councillors will consider and debate all aspects and implications of this issue as part of Council's agenda.
Question 14 is from Gay Jolly, and its topic is also Notice of Motion F3, Part 2 parts. Part 1, various cost figures were included in the motion details. On what basis were these figures calculated? And Part 2, would council please provide evidence supporting all financial figures, including the content information of the officer's comments? Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, councillors will consider and debate all aspects and implications of this issue as part of Council's agenda.
Question 15 is from Michael Goods, and its topic is Notice of Motion F3. Councillor Bauer, to pick up landfill bins weekly, the cost of the variation to the contract of 500 to 600,000 per year and cost to ratepayers $18 to 21. Why were these cost figures published in the open agenda? Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, councillors will consider and debate all aspects and implications of this issue as part of Council's agenda. Indicative estimates were provided in the open agenda in the interests of transparency and to support Council make an informed decision.
And that's it. So thank you so much for those very varied questions and very specific questions. So thank you all for taking the time for sending them forward. Okay, so now brings us to petitions, joint letters, deputations and correspondence. So we have a petition to create a short bike path in Shearwater Estate in Cowes. So can I have somebody move and second that we receive this petition? Thank you, Councillor Rooks, and seconded Councillor Kent. All in favour of that we receive this petition? Councillors Tassari, Kent, Rooks, Lark, Laserve, Lang, Halstead, Whelan and Bauer. Okay, so that brings us to notices of motion. So we have the first notice of motion is item F1, 235-21 Arts and Cultural Community Advisory Committee discussion paper to be presented by Councillor Halstead. Councillor Halstead, if I could ask you to just briefly summarise your notice of motion before I get somebody to second it, please. And you've got to take yourself off mute, Councillor Halstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'm just requesting that Council formally accept the discussion paper that was presented to us in a briefing back in April. That's all the motion is seeking to do, to have that document tabled.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Can I have somebody second that notice of motion? Councillor Lang. Okay, you may now speak to your notice of motion, Councillor Halstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, it gives me great pleasure as the chair of the Arts and Culture Community Advisory Committee to formally congratulate the committee for the work that's gone into producing this really well-considered discussion paper that outlines a really exciting vision for the future of arts in Bass Coast. Given the conditions we've all endured through COVID-19 restrictions over the past 2 years, the arts have likely never been more important. Being creative and sharing space with others provides an outlet for expression, as well as having a positive impact on the health and well-being of our community. We should strive for a clear pathway to invest in, support and encourage community participation in the arts, and this discussion paper opens up the opportunity to have that discussion. Most exciting in this discussion paper for me is the desire for a creative space through an arts precinct, with mention of the former Wonthaggi Secondary College in McBride Avenue being an ideal location, and with some safety measures advanced, would be a ready-made opportunity. The perfect location for artists to come together to share and learn from each other. I encourage the Victorian State Government, who are the owners of this site, to make the site safe and consider offering it to the arts community. In closing, I also ask that Council consider a process through our Council meeting Statutory Reports agenda where significant documents produced by Council's committees, such as this discussion paper, could be formally tabled in the future so as not to require a notice of motion. Similar, I guess, to how our Audit and Risk Committee reports are noted. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm the sub-chair of the committee, and I've witnessed the many fascinating conversations that occur and understand that the document serves as a discussion paper to spark the dialogue that Councillor Halstead has already highlighted. We're really privileged, I think, to be part of a community that has such talented artists and creatives in our community. This document was voluntarily put together, and it was put together to spark this conversation. So I wholly support it being tabled so the community can have a look and have a think and perhaps get some more bright ideas.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this notice of motion? Councillor Lasserve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I really would like to congratulate the advisory committee for presenting such a detailed discussion paper. I certainly think it's a bold vision and a united one at that with the group. I also think that we're very fortunate to have the arts community that are living amongst us right across the Shire, some excellent artists in all capacities, and I would recommend that we support their document. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserve. Councillor Rooks.
Thanks, Mayor Tessari. I do appreciate the interest Councillor Halstead shows in her as chair of her community group, and I appreciate the report and presentation that this community group presented to Council. However, I don't think that this item should come as a notice of motion to Council. It should be dealt with outside this arena. as suggested by Councillor Halstead when she made her last comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this notice of motion? Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support what Councillor Halstead and Councillor Lang have said. It's a very comprehensive report, very well put together. And I also would like to echo what Councillor Halstead said about how this is brought into the chamber, and there should be a more streamlined method of doing it rather than a personal notice of motion. But I commend the report.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? No? No? Councillor Halstead, would you like to summarise? Put it to a vote. You're on mute again, Councillor Halstead. That's two. And we're first one, I think, too. Going to be a short meeting for you.
Just in summary, I would like to thank the committee members for all of their efforts, and we are, as Councillor Lang said, very fortunate to have them on our committee, and it's really exciting, this discussion paper. So I do hope that we can take some of what is in that paper and move forward with it. So I'll just put it to the vote from there. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. All in favour of the notice of motion as it reads? Councillors Kent, Lark, Lasserve, Halstead, Whelan and Bauer. Carried. Okay, item number F2. Improved Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change, IPCC report. Councillor Michael Whelan, would you like to briefly summarise your motion before I get it seconded?
It's a pretty brief motion. The Council notes the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change IPCC report and maintains its commitment to the climate emergency and implementation of Council's climate change action plan as expediently as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Can I have somebody second that motion? Councillor Halstead got in first. Councillor Whelan, you may now speak to your notice of motion.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's important to note that Council has been very proactive in this area, declaring a climate emergency back in 2019. And since that time, a very comprehensive climate change action plan has been put together, which charts a path for Council and the community to achieve zero emissions by 2030. The discussion in the media at this point in time is about national and international arrangements where nationally we are failing to even set a target at this point in time. It's hopeful by the COP26 report in Belfast, late Belfast, might have the wrong town there. Anyway, we'll actually have a position that we go forward on. The key part of this is the requirement to actually have strong targets by 2030, and it's unlikely that the federal government, while it might be likely they'll have a 2050 target by COP26, unlikely they'll have gone for a 2030 target. I just wanted to put it into a context. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres stated, "We must act decisively now to keep 1.5 degrees centigrade alive," which is the target of the Paris Agreements, to try and keep global warming below 1.5 degrees. He says, "We are already at 1.2 degrees C and rising." And when you look at the major fires we had, the Black Summer fires or the Black Saturday fires, the windstorms we had recently in Bass Coast, the fact that our coast is eroding in so many locations, we're in trouble now. The failure to respond at the federal level is very concerning. The Australian Security Leaders Climate Group stated, "Responding adequately to the climate threat is fundamental to the survival of the nation. But Australia has repeatedly ignored the risks and is ill prepared for the security implications of devastating climate impacts at home and in the Asia Pacific, the highest risk region in the world." Now, we are talking people there from the Australian Security Leaders Climate Group of the ilk of Admiral Chris Barry, AC, retired, former Chief of the Defence Force, Air Vice Marshal John Blackburn, AO, retired, former Deputy Chief of the Royal Australian Air Force, currently Chair of the Institute for Integrated Economic Research Australia. Ian Dunlop, former coal executive, now a member of the Club of Rome, so he seems to have seen sense towards the end of that career. They are the ones that are advocating for strong action by the setting targets by the federal government. For some reason, they won't do that, which is why it's important then that this has to be led by local government, because quite frankly, we have that cloth-eared approach to the national level. So that's why the targets that have been set by 2030 target are so important.
Right on the money too. Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Sorry, I've lost my page. I was looking ahead. Councillor Halstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'd like to thank Councillor Whelan for this notice of motion, and I'm pleased that we're able to bring some attention to its findings. I believe Bass Coast is showing signs of being in the front line of the effects of climate change with, as Councillor Whelan has pointed out, beach erosion, wild storms, landslides in our hinterland are all being experienced across the municipality. And I'm really proud that our council at a local level is taking such an active approach to climate change. I think that's where we're going to see most of the effort. We'll be doing the heavy lifting. But I would like to also, in supporting Councillor Whelan's notice of motion, just highlight some local opportunities that are presented to council that would have a serious impact immediately and into the future should council choose to act quickly on them. And that would be the availability of possibly the Holden Proving Ground and the protections that we could be placing over that, the Save Western Port Woodlands, and also putting a bit of pressure on the Victorian government when it comes to the distinctive areas landscape, which they have declared Bass Coast as being, but we've yet to see any movement on that. So I just feel if we're really serious, and I think this council is, that there's some things that we could really start to push forward and that need the action, and we should be getting behind it. But in saying that, I really congratulate Councillor Whelan. He's been a very strong voice on climate change, and he's very knowledgeable. I appreciate that I can talk to him about these sorts of issues, and he is very knowledgeable on them. So I congratulate him, and I will be supporting this notice of motion.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this notice of motion? Councillor Loch. Oh, you're on mute, Councillor Loch. That's one strike. You can see the disappointment on his face. It's been going so well.
I see this motion similarly to Councillor Rook's comments about the arts and culture form of notice, the earlier motion. I think this is a form of grandstanding. We have in place a climate action plan. We're addressing many of these issues, and this report could have been discussed quietly and serenely behind the scenes, and the climate action plan adjusted if need be. As I say, I just reiterate, I see it as a form of grandstanding and unnecessary as a notice of motion.
Thank you, Councillor Loch. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this? Councillor Lasser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I would contradict Councillor Lark's comments about being grandstanding. I think if we're going to grandstand anything, we need to grandstand this issue, and I think bringing it to the chamber just reinforces our commitment to climate change. So it is out there in the community, and I believe that it is well supported and needs to be reiterated that we are chasing this down and we need to do some actions.
Thank you, Councillor Lasser. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this notice of motion? Okay, Councillor Whelan, would you like to summarise or put it straight to a vote?
I'd like to answer a couple of points, if I may. Mrs. Thatcher was in favour of strong action on climate change. We had the Stern report in about 2006 in the United Kingdom. We had the Garnaut report 2007 in Australia. And they both recommended that taking action then, 13, 15 years ago, was far more economic than leaving it till the last minute. we've had no action or very little action. In fact, we've had opposition to this. We've got active lobbying from the coal lobby to actually put more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. But I also want to, so that's why I'm pushing it. And I thank Councillor Lasser for her comments, because we do need to push this issue. And if I have to yell it from the grandstand, well, I'll yell it from there. I'll get on the roof of the grandstand, because it's that important as an issue. But I want to also pick up the point that Councillor Halstead said about local opportunity. Absolutely fundamental, and not only in respect to protecting that vegetation that's there, growing a lot more, planting out areas, but also working with our businesses so they can capitalise on the opportunities. People like to accentuate the cost of climate change, and in fact, there are great opportunities there for business. And I want businesses to know that we're prepared to work with them to help them be prepared to take on this challenge. And when companies and councils and all that are starting to say we want a carbon-free supply line, I want our companies to be able to say, yeah, we're carbon-free, and we can line up for those tenders and have a competitive advantage over others. So we can go along, put our head in the sand. It's a comfortable place for some people to be, or get into the grandstand, shout it out, and really take our businesses and the community along with us and tell them about the opportunity. Well, recently, that will soon be putting out another opportunity for businesses to upgrade their old equipment, get away from the old carbon rich equipment. They've got new refrigeration, new air conditioning, those sorts of things. So this is the sort of thing we do, and it's a great opportunity for Bass Coast.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. We'll put it to a vote. All in favour of the notice of motion as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Kent, Brooks, Lark, Lasserve, Lang, Halstead, Whelan and Bauer. Carried. Okay, item number F3, to be presented by Councillor Bauer, 3 curbside bin collection. If you could briefly summarise your notice of motion, Councillor Bauer, before I get somebody to second it, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to put up a amended motion. Do I do that now or just?
Yeah, no, you may put up an amended motion if I can ask for it to be put up on screen. So, would you like to read your amended motion, Councillor Bauer?
Yes, the amended motion now reads that the 3 curbside bins, red, yellow and green, be collected weekly, Shire-wide, from Boxing Day 2022 to the last Friday in January annually.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Can I have somebody second that notice of motion? Councillor Kent, you may now speak to your amended notice of motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dear fellow councillors and members of the community watching this meeting, this motion only concentrates on collecting the inevitable waste in the heat of summer. At present, many of the red bins are overflowing, unsightly, and in short, stink. Our residents expect and deserve better. It is a message that I've heard for a long time. Let's address the problem. Let's get something crystal clear. This is not a motion to alter the Shire's waste reduction policies or strategies. I, like the rest of my fellow councillors, agree that the more waste that we can redirect from landfill to recycle programs is an imperative, not only for our Shire, but the planet. I will be the first person to applaud the day when the only item in the landfill bin is one used toothbrush. We pride ourselves on being the premier tourist destination of the state and actively encourage visitors to enjoy our many natural attractions. As Australia opens up in the future, there is no doubt that we will have a bumper influx of tourists to the Shire, and especially Victoria's jewel in the crown, Phillip Island. We cannot pursue a strategy of attraction and then present a panorama of overflowing bins which reduces images of dishevelment, neglect, and an undesirable odour to reinforce that image. Some councils will argue that the unsightly bins can be remedied by education and enforcement. I really wish that was true, but sadly, the reality is different. There's an overwhelming number of properties that are not listed on the Shire's short-term accommodation register. Due to COVID, many more holiday owners will rent out their properties to get some very needed extra income. Our revamped short-term accommodation local law and code of conduct can't be introduced before February due to the required statutory timelines, so the 2021-22 holiday period would slip through the cracks. The cost for any variation to an existing contract or possibly even a standalone contract for additional pickups will be offset by operators of the short-term rental properties in the future. This motion will not impact on this year's budget. There is no hit to the bottom line. It will allow officers plenty of time to prepare, negotiate, and implement the changes with the waste contractor. The motion's timeline allows council plenty of time to communicate directly with the ratepayers of any upcoming changes. Councillors, this motion is about the collection of existing unsightly and stinking landfill. It does not encourage or produce additional landfill. Let me repeat it. It does not encourage or produce additional landfill. This motion addresses an existing and persistent problem. I urge all councillors to support it. I commend the motion to the chamber. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor King.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Bauer has taken a lot of my thunder. Look, I think it should be noted by the community that we still have 45% content of our red bins should not be in those red bins. They should be dispersed between the green bin and the yellow bin. And that's a fact. But the rubbish is there in the red bin. We have a problem. It's not going away. We need education, but we're informed that the new rules for educating people won't come out at least until the end of the year, if not into the new year, on how to sort their rubbish. I even make mistakes at the moment, thinking that I was doing the right thing with a coffee mug and taking the plastic lid off, putting it in the yellow bin. The rules have changed. I was doing the wrong things, thinking I was doing the right thing. We need education. As Councillor Bauer said, he'll be really happy just to have his plastic toothbrush in there. I can also foresee that we've got 15 months before this is implemented, that we will have consultation with the community and they will have their say too. So we'll be updating the strategy because it will be changed. We have that 15 months to smooth this out. And look, it just might be cost neutral when we work on it. So I think the community needs to look at itself. Have a look at what you're putting in those red bins because the problem's not going away, but I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Would anyone else like to? Councillor Rooks.
Thanks, Mayor Tesari. I appreciate Councillor Bauer's enthusiasm for trying to help and fix our waste issue over the summer period within the Bass Coast Shire. There is a problem there with regards to waste with the red bin. However, the problem is limited to the short-term accommodation. We don't have a problem outside the holiday periods. We only have the problem during those holiday periods when the short-term accommodation is here. That includes the holiday homeowners that come down as well into their own home. We have a sort-in problem. People don't sort their waste enough. As Councillor Kent said, we've still got 45% of our waste going into red bins that could go elsewhere. And it's more than likely that a holiday short-term accommodation are the biggest culprits in this area. I've done my own research and it shows that in the holiday homes and the short-term accommodation, they don't have 3 bins inside their kitchen. So they don't have a red bin, a yellow bin and a green bin ready for those paying guests who come and visit their homes. Without that, the paying guests can't sort the waste. So I believe we first need to incentivise and educate those short-term accommodation people to get hold of these 3 bins into their homes that they rent out. And so then the people that stay there can actually effectively manage their waste and recycle. That would be good for the environment. It would be good for It would be good to see that happening. And that would effectively mean that the locals don't have to pay for this additional cost that may happen if this motion gets through. So that's what I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this notice of motion? Councillor Lark.
Yes, I just want to reiterate that there's no impact on the 2021 budget, nor is there any impact on the rate notices that ratepayers have received for the rating year 21-22. It's into the future. However, there were 3 questions asked today, earlier on in question time, by Anne Gross, Gay Jolly, and Michael Guz. And the answers given were councillors will consider and debate all aspects and implications of this issue as part of the council's agenda. I'd like the officers to give explicit answers during this open meeting to those questions asked in relation to the costs, which I'm bemused by, and the other questions specifically asked by those particular ratepayers, because we gave the commitment to address those issues during the debate.
Who are you asking, Councillor Lark?
I'm asking either the CEO or the Senior General Manager responsible for waste collection.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. If the officers aren't part of this debate, if there's a specific question, the councillor should ask it. Otherwise, it's not for the officers to participate in the debate.
I believe that, I take the point of order, I believe the question was asked though, in response to question time. Whether the answers are taken on notice or not is another thing, but I think Councillor Lark has the right to at least ask the question. Whether it's given or not, I'm not sure. Okay, Councillor Lark, you will need to ask the question. We're not debating public question time.
Okay. I have 3 questions then. Firstly, on behalf of Anne,
Continue.
Island Ward Councillor Ronnie Bauer.
Councillor Lark, I don't need the public question time read out again. I just need you to ask the question that you would like answered.
Okay, I'll ask firstly, why was the financial figures disclosed in the notice of motion, number 1? And secondly, I can't figure out how the 500 to 600,000 was calculated, and I've asked twice of the administration to explain those figures, so I require an explanation of how those figures were calculated. So they're my 2 questions.
Thank you. Yes.
Point of order is that since those questions were asked in question time, the substantive motion is different. We're now talking about next year, and those matters are not pertinent to the discussion at hand. I think they could be ruled out of order.
That's a better point of order.
Well, the first one was pretty good.
One's better.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure how I get involved in this debate, but I think the fact that the figures have been put out there publicly, I too would like to see the breakdown of those figures and how we came at that 500,000 to 600,000.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. I will allow our CEO to respond to Councillor Lark's question.
Through the Mayor, Councillor Lark, can you repeat your first question, please?
My first question was, why were the financial figures relating to the increased cost of collection disclosed in the notice of motion to the public?
Through the Mayor, The answers were it was disclosed to provide context for the councillors so that they can make an informed decision.
Second question, Councillor Lark.
My second question is in relation to the 500 to 600,000 quoted. I've requested information from the administration on several occasions, and that hasn't been forthcoming. How is that 500 to 600,000 made up? What does it comprise?
Through the Mayor, the figures are estimates, and these were determined in consultation with the current contractor, and they are estimates only, and they have been provided to help inform council's discussion of the notice of motion.
Thank you, Ms. Wasty. Would you like to continue, Councillor Lark?
Well, I would like to understand, for example, the service is over the period Boxing Day to January, end of January. If we enter into this arrangement with regard to the estimate, does that mean we're paying for the new garbage trucks for a full 12 months for 1 month of service, plus variable costs of fuel, maintenance, servicing, etc.? I'm bemused at how this calculation has been made and estimated.
Well, the response has been given to you by our CEO, Councillor Lark. I suggest we move forward. You've got your response to your question of how the figure will come about, so continue on.
On a point of order, Mr. Mayor, I don't think the question, I think what Councillor Lark is asking for is a breakdown of...
Asked the question of how we came to the figure, of which the CEO responded in consultation with the contractor, and it's an estimate only. That's the answer that was given to the question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Lark, have you finished with it?
Well, I'm not satisfied with the reply from the CEO. But,
that was the reply you were given, Councillor Lark.
Pardon?
That's the reply that was given.
Yeah, and there's really no basis for understanding what the $500,000 to $600,000 is made up of. But I won't pursue it any further. It's a lost cause, obviously.
The CEO would like to respond.
Through the Mayor, a breakdown would be commercial in confidence, so we can't provide any further information than that, but we did provide what we could without breaking commercial in confidence in order for councillors to make an informed decision. We would need to take the further information that you've asked for today, Councillor Lark, on notice. Thank you.
Well, I've asked for it over several weeks and it hasn't been forthcoming.
So would anyone else like to speak to the notice to or against the notice of motion? Councillor Halstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I really understand that Councillor Bauer is very passionate about his notice of motion. I think that there's a need, given the discussion that we've had, to put this aside and wait till we do an update of the waste strategy. They talk about not having any effect on the residents. It's quite clear that this is really built around the incoming non-residents that are coming in for holidays or tourism, Airbnb, etc. It won't affect this budget, but it will affect the next budget. And then how do we determine that we've got to pay across the scheme? So I think that we need to really look at that, updating that waste strategy and put this aside until we've had those discussions and we could understand it more clearly. Because if you took, just based on the figures that we've been provided, that over the life of the contract, it'll cost an extra $3.6 million to have this factored into the variation within the contract.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this notice of motion? Councillor Whelan.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I oppose the resolution on the basis that I believe it does undermine the waste strategy which is built around the FOGO and has led us to lead the state in terms of diversion from landfill at 77%. What bemuses me about this resolution is it does nothing about what at first stage it was predicated on, which was expecting an influx of visitors over this coming summer from the pent-up demand arising from COVID, and it doesn't even attempt to do that. I just cannot understand it. I previously offered Councillor Bauer to work with him to come up with some solutions to this summer, because there's no doubt there is a problem. There is a problem with overflowing waste bins. We had an excellent presentation from the officers last week that gave us a way forward as far as I was concerned. It also gave us insights into how the waste levy is set. We had a email this morning from someone who was shocked at her level of waste levy that she has to pay because she hardly ever fills the bins. Well, there's some people around this council meeting I know in that same boat, and they are subsidising the people that are making money off Airbnb and all the rest of it, who are putting all that waste out onto the curb and letting it overflow because they don't damn well care. The people that do care are managing their waste, and you won't find that 45% of petressables in the red bin. They're the sorts of things we need to be addressing. Now, so at the moment, these premises can go for an additional bin, the 140 litre, the 240 litre bin. They're not doing it. The uptake is very low. They don't care. And they're the people that should be wearing the brunt of this and paying the extra cost of cleaning this issue up, not the people that are doing the right thing and the people that live here 365 days of the year. So the additional bin, we're also talking about enhanced education. And Shana, who presented, probably shouldn't mention her name, brilliant presentation. We're in good hands in relation to that. And what I want to see is a bit of stick in this and what we can do in enforcement. Now, I'm looking at whether the litter rules can be used effectively here. It's a pretty blunt instrument, but by next year, by February of next year, as I understand it, we'll have the new local laws that will allow us to address this online booking issue and a whole range of things across the party houses and the people and the waste problem, that sort of thing. We're solving a problem, 9 months after it's actually going to happen. It's bizarre. It just does not make sense. This is also a climate change issue, so it's all very well for us to say, yes, we all care about climate change, wave the flag and shout the grandstands. Our emissions is the hardest thing for council to address is the landfill emissions. We're adding to those emissions with this strategy.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this notice of motion? Oh, Councillor Halstead, you got in just in front of Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, the fact that we're discussing this issue outside of the summer period tells me that our local residents are having difficulty with overflowing red bins. So it's not the short-term tourists who are reporting these problems to councillors. It's our residents that are reporting these problems. I do understand that there are also issues around the short-term accommodation and that, yes, that's a whole nother kettle of fish and something that we should be looking at, and I believe we will be through a local law into the future and hopefully not the too distant future. But to say that there isn't a problem amongst our permanent residents, I think is a furphy. I am a permanent resident here. I have recently paid the $50 fee to get the 240 litre bin because my husband has been unwell and I've needed the extra space. That was another issue in this contract that I hope has been updated, that people who have health issues are not being forced to pay an extra fee to get a bin that takes away the waste that's caused through those health issues. But that's aside, and I divert. I think that as a council, we also need to consider that our permanent population is growing very quickly, and we've had this discussion in amongst council many times over the last months to say that we're seeing more and more families. Just recently, I listened to a podcast a fantastic podcast actually, that our CEO put over the ABC radio, saying that we are seeing more families moving to Bass Coast. Now, you know, that is going to create more waste. There's no getting around that. And yes, we do need to educate, but I think that the two have to go in hand in hand. I don't think you take away the service and with a big stick start prodding residents and forcing them to do it your way. I think you educate and you provide the service along the way as you go. And as people start to recycle, then you can pull the service back. But I think at the moment we have a problem, councillors. This has come before this council many, many times in the past, and it doesn't seem to be going away. So that to me tells me we need to address it. So I congratulate Councillor Bauer for bringing this motion to council and for forcing this debate over the issue. I do think we need to do a lot more work around our waste management contract and our short and long-term accommodations.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to address a few of the unsubstantiated statements in Councillor Bauer's preamble. This is clearly an issue about landfill that ratepayers will be footing the bill for. As a mother of 3 kids, I understand waste. We still don't manage to fill our red bin fortnightly because I know how to tell the difference between a Coke can and a banana peel. So in many ways, I think that I'd like to acknowledge that, yes, in some areas of the Shire, there are problems, but it's not fair that the whole Shire would have to foot the bill, whether it's not in this set of rates, but the next set of rates down the track. I also think that if there is only 10% of the community that are taking up the offer that Councillor Halstead has taken up with the 140 litre bin. And I have requested that from Councillor Bauer to see more information and more data to back up what he's saying about the stinkiness and the overflowing bins. I have yet to see that being substantiated. I see a lot of really exaggerated statements being thrown about here. What I've received as presentations from the council officers has been data-driven and well substantiated. My understanding is that only 25 or 26% of the red bins are actually full of, are incorrectly full of organic waste, not the 45% that Councillor Kent said, but I might stand corrected on that one. I also received that email today asking from a ratepayer to have a smaller bin. I don't want to diminish that there might be a problem, but I don't think that going against our own waste management strategy that councillors some of who are in this council today actually approved, I don't think going against that waste management strategy and increasing the landfill at Grantville and our transfer station sites is the solution for it. It's unfortunate that this is the mechanism that Councillor Bauer has chosen as a way of solving it, because it just adds another problem. The problem of ongoing costs, the problems that are associated with increasing our landfill, and the problems associated with increasing our carbon emissions when we've declared a climate emergency and have a climate action plan. So I congratulate Councillor Bauer on being such a passionate individual. I don't believe that this is the right mechanism to be solving this problem when there are things that we haven't tried just yet. We've got the local laws coming up.
Ask you to finish up, Councillor Lang, if I can, please.
We have the local laws coming up next year, and I'd like to see a bit more data to back up what Councillor Bauer is actually saying.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Bauer, would you like to summarise before putting it to a vote?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, can I ask one question now before I do that to Councillor Whelan? from what he stated there about not collecting, are you signaling you'd like to move an amendment to bring it back to this year? Did I hear you correctly?
No. Just close it up, Councillor. Councillor Whelan, you can't ask a question of Councillor Whelan.
Well, that's the impression I got. Anyway, to address to Councillor Lang's comment that it was not a problem, I invited to Phillip Island any week during the summer months this year to witness and the see and smell the problem. But I'll sum it up now, Mr. Mayor. This is a collection issue, not a change to the waste management policy or strategy. This motion deals with an existing problem as expressed by our residents. I firmly believe it will not increase additional waste to landfill. Let me repeat that. It will not increase additional waste to landfill. I was elected on a promise to the community to find a solution to the red bin collections in the peak summer period. With the adoption of this motion, we have over 12 months to refine our waste collection strategy, and I firmly believe we can achieve the outcomes of this motion being revenue neutral and will not increase the current waste collection charges to our ratepayers. I sincerely believe the adoption of this motion will bring a long-term solution to this issue and is a way forward. And Mr. Mayor, I wish to put on there that I wish to have a division on this vote.
Put it to a vote. All in favour of Councillor Bauer's notice of motion, please raise your hands. Councillors Kent, Halstead and Bauer, and against? Councillors Tassari, Rooks, Laserve, Lang and Whelan, and abstain? Councillor lost.
Division, please.
All in favour of the notice of motion? Councillors Kent, Halstead and Bauer, and against? Councillors Tassari, Rooks, Laserve, Lang and Whelan, and abstain? Councillor Lark. Okay, that brings us to our mayors and councillors' reports. So as we have been doing since we have been online, all councillors shall send through their reports of what they have done for the month, and they will be logged onto the minutes when the minutes for the meeting are put online. But I would like to, if I can, please make an acknowledgement, if I can, to Barry Hayes. Barry Hayes was a former CEO at the Phillip Island Shire before amalgamation. He passed away last month at the age of 81 after a short battle with cancer. Barry served for 12 years at the Shire of Phillip Island from 1982 until his retirement in 1994. Rest in peace, Barry. Okay, so we're now at reports requiring council decisions. So item number H.1 Planning Application 210039 to be presented by Mr. Sturton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present Planning Application 210039, which seeks to subdivide the subject land into 6 lots and create an easement in the low-density residential zone on Gill Street in Sunderland Bay. The application was advertised and received 15 submissions consisting of 9 objections and 6 letters of support. The application has been assessed against the Bass Coast Planning Scheme and has been found to satisfy the provisions of the relevant policy and zones. It is recommended that Council resolve to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for application 210039. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sturton. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendations as they read? Councillor Rooks, and seconded Councillor Kent. Councillor Rooks.
Thanks, Mayor Tassari. I support this recommendation. The subdivision is happening within our town boundaries. It's classified as a low-density residential zone, and the applicant has gone to the trouble to make sure that they are following such rules which apply there, which means that each of the land sizes have to be 2,000 square metres or greater, which they are. There was, this applicant submitted previously in 2016 and there were drainage issues. That's been overcome and the council staff is supportive of that area now. The setbacks are good. So there's plenty of room for revegetation and space between current houses and adjoining houses that'll be part of the new residential zone. And the extension of Jill Street in that area will have the pleasure of having sealed both road and footpath. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe the applicant is planning to build on one of these blocks himself. I congratulate him on his application. Ideally, this would all occur once we've done all the drainage system within Sunderland Bay, Smiths and Surf Beach, which I hope will come along fairly quickly, but there's a number of permit conditions that he's got to comply with in regards to the storm water. And I believe it's just a fantastic project for that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendations? No? Councillor Rooks, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
Put it to a vote, thanks.
Put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Kent, Rooks, Lark, Lasserve, Lang, Halstead, Whelan and Bauer. Carried. Item number H2 is also a planning application 210173 to be presented by Mr. Sturton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present planning application 210173, which seeks to develop and use the land for an education centre with a reduction in associated car parking requirements. The proposal is for the new location of the Phillip Island Community and Learning Centre located at 16 Warley Avenue, Cowes. The application was advertised and received 10 objections, which all focused on traffic and parking issues. The application has been assessed against the Basque Coast Planning Scheme, has been found to satisfy relevant policy and zones and positively provide net community benefit for the Shire. It is recommended the Council resolve to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for application 210173, subject to the conditions as outlined in the report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sturton. I apologise. I've just had all of a sudden about 35 emails come through. So.
Gosh, I thought that was me, Mr. Mayor. I was looking at my inbox, but obviously yours.
I apologise,
Classical gas.
Mr. Sturton, while you were reading that, all of a sudden they decided to come through. Thank you for that. Could I have somebody move? Yep, moved. Councillor Whelan, seconded. Councillor Bauer. Councillor Whelan.
Mr. Mayor, look, this is a great project and it's one that has its origins back in the early in this last term of council, when council was planning a renewal of the existing building of Pickle. Would have been throwing some good money at that, really. And of course, in the intervening period, of course, the community hospital has come across, which required a new site. So council is building this for the use of Pickle, remains a council asset. The Pickle do great work, and I think it's excellent support we can provide to an organisation within our community that does such fundamental supportive work across the community. So I think it's a great thing. There are issues. I don't see them as issues raised. I don't see them as blockers in the sense parking. There's not a parking problem where they are at the moment. And we're really transferring not all of their activities actually, but a number of their activities across. So I don't see it creating a problem from that point of view. I'm really pleased to see that we're actually providing bicycle parking, and that's something I want to see more extensively around the island. So I think basically on the basis of community benefit, I think this is a great project.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I support what Councillor Whelan has just said, and this is the last piece of the puzzle to be able to shift Pickle from its current position to the Warley site. I don't believe, after looking at this report, the traffic and the comments by officers regarding the traffic issue, that it should be an impediment. And I fully support this planning application, and I hope other councillors do the same. This is a great step forward, not only for the island, but for our whole community. They do wonderful work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendations? Oh, Councillor Rooks.
Yeah, I just want to make a few comments about the car parking. Initially, the application was submitted and they were requiring 58 car parks based on 154 people using their service. The people of Pickle listened to some of the objectors and decided that they could work around that a little bit and have lessened, I guess, the number of car parks required by putting a maximum number of people that can use the site at any one time. So a maximum of 70 people can use the site at any one time, and that reduces the car parking needs to just 27. And I want to reiterate there what Councillor Whelan said. It is like for like. The Pickle building was already existing with its services in the other side of Thompson Avenue. Now it's at the west side of Thompson Avenue, and it's providing those same services and possibly a few less because they couldn't all fit on the site. So the amount of car parking hasn't increased necessarily. It's just moved from one spot to another. That's what I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? No? Councillor Whelan, would you like to put it to a vote? All in favour of the recommendation as it reads? Councillors Tassari, Kent, Brooks, Lark, Lasserve, Lang, Halstead, Whelan and Bauer. Carried. Item number H.3 Planning Application 210206 to be presented by Mr. Sturt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present Planning Application 210206, which seeks to subdivide the land into 2 lots within the township zone at 6 Bonwick Court, Kilcunda. The application was advertised and received 6 objections. The application has been assessed against the Bass Coast Planning Scheme and has been found to satisfy the relevant policy and provisions. It is recommended that Council resolve to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for application number 210206. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sturt. And can I have somebody move and second the recommendations as it reads? Is that a half there, Councillor Kent? And is that a half a pen I just saw stuck up there, Councillor Halstead? No. Seconded, Councillor Lang. Okay.
I've just got a question, if I can, Mr. Mayor.
When it comes to your time to talk, Councillor Halstead, that'll be fine. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, this is a subdivision of the one block. We're producing 2 blocks, 413 square metres and 582 square metres as a result of the battle axe formation. It must be noted that directly opposite this project is another battle axe project, and there's several other similar projects in that neighbourhood. We're all in support of the townships having their boundaries, and we're probably at that situation where we're doing a little bit of infill within those boundaries at the moment. And I must say these size blocks are larger than the normal blocks that we have seen in the past of 300. So I support this application.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor Kent has summed up the issue nicely, so nothing further to add.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? Yeah, Councillor Halstead. Oh, Councillor Halstead, that's 3 strikes. You're done.
Sorry. Just a question, Mr. Mayor. In regards to the drainage, I know we've got some conditions on the drainage. I just want to clarify, there's been some concern expressed around the fact that these developments in this location have a bit of an impact on the Crystal Brook estate, and the water is flowing down into that estate. I just want to get clarification that the drainage conditions will address this through H.2 Planning. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
To planning.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there is a requirement that the development of these lots must meet the pre-development flow levels. So conditions 7A through to 7D, as outlined in the report, nominate that a section 173 on the land will specify an on-site stormwater detention system that must be installed and maintained to the satisfaction of council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Would anyone
Thank you.
else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No. Councillor Kent, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
Put it to a vote, please.
Thank you. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads? Councillors Tassari, Kent, Rooks, Lark, Laserve, Lang, Halstead, Whelan and Bauer. Carried. Item number H4 is also is a planning scheme amendment, C.1 to be presented by Mr Sturton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider commencing planning scheme amendment C.1 to rezone the land from public use zone 1 to farming zone. Ordinarily, a public use zone parcel of land would be assigned to a school, public hall or for public utilities. 2295 Loch Wonthaggi Road, Ryanston is in private ownership, contains no easements or any other evidence to suggest the presence of public assets on site. As such, this lot is an anomaly in the planning scheme, which C.1 seeks to amend. It is recommended that Council resolve to commence planning scheme amendment C.1 by seeking authorisation from the Minister to proceed with this amendment, and given the nature of the single lot, seek exemptions from the notice requirements of the Act. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Sturton. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendation? Councillor Kent, and seconded Councillor Laserve. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a simple one, a common sense vote. I think the property was used for some unknown purpose in the past. It is a farming zone. It should be zoned a farming zone. There's no objections, and that's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Laserve.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think you'll find that, and this is just an operational matter to get it all cleaned up, really, that over the period of time, there are these little blocks set amongst the rural zone, the farm zone, and we just need to get it all in order. So I'm happy to put the recommendation with Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Councillor Laserve. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No. Councillor Kent, to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Kent, Brooks, Lark, Laserve, Lang, Halstead, Whelan and Bauer. Carried. Item number H5 is the Economic Development Strategy 2016 to 2021 to be presented by Mr Box.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide Council with an overview of the actions achieved in Council's Economic Development Strategy 2016 to 2021. Council adopted the strategy in 2016 and has since worked to implement policies to attract and encourage new investments to complement the region's natural environment. Prior to the COVID pandemic, the region's unemployment rate fell from a peak of 8.6% in 2016 to 3.6% in December 2019. At the same time, gross regional product went up $1.5 billion, a 12.5% rise. Whilst the past 18 months of pandemic conditions have presented significant challenges, Council has responded proactively, supporting businesses across the region and remains committed to the sustainable development and growth of our economy. It's recommended that Council receive the attached Economic Development 5-year report.
Thank you, Mr Box. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendations as they read? Councillor Whelan, and seconded Councillor Rooks. Councillor Whelan.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and thanks, Mr Box. It's an interesting report. It'll be one of the last ones, I guess, of this strategy, because we're due to do a new strategy, and it's probably timely when you consider some of the implications. The COVID impact, well, everyone knows what that is. It's decimated our businesses. Perhaps they're still there, but whether they're hanging on with government support and what will happen beyond that, only time can tell. And it's a sad situation that we face. But on the other hand, the influx of people who are now realising they can work from home and live in a regional area is going to change our area quite considerably. And developments such as the northeast, Wonthaggi northeast and the like come into Rome when we start to consider that, and the foresight was put in working on those sorts of proposals. It showed a significant weakness, I think, in our economy, the pandemic, one that was always there. We're the second most dependent economy on tourism in Australia, and consequently we're really impacted by these sorts of things. We need to build resilience into our economic situation, And I think our next strategy needs to look at that. So let's look forward out of this mire that we're in and look at coming back stronger and stronger.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. I take that's a statement you've heard or used a lot of times, the second most reliable economy on
Yes, I think I heard the mayor say it once.
45 million times I've said that. Would anyone else like to, sorry, Councillor Rooks.
And I was going to use that quote when we receive the next report, just to put it in advance notice. I just want to mention two things with regards to this report. They're both, I guess, good news stories. The response to COVID that our Shire did, which was to set up the Community Leadership Recovery Group to look at ways that we could possibly support our community, and the council put aside $965,000 into the initiatives to help. So that's fantastic. And the other thing is people need to appreciate the work the council does to try to attract state and federal investment into our area. And some of the things that we've seen recently happen in the last 5 years has been the Wonthaggi hospital redevelopment. We've got a new secondary school and junior campus coming up, the Country University Centre, and the Phillip Island Nature Parks redevelopment. So there are good news stories from this report. Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Loch. Oh, you just caught yourself then, Councillor Loch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For future reports, I would like to see more in-depth data re our achievements. For example, Mr. Box did mention gross regional product and some employment figures. There's many others, gross regional product as a percentage of gross state product and other definitive indicators that I think would be important to track at a strategic level for council, a higher level performance indicators rather than line item achievements. And I understand this may be considered going forward. So I'm confident that Mr. Box has mentioned that he's going to look at that in much more detail for future reports and strategies.
Thank you, Councillor Loch. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? Councillor Halstead. Take yourself off mute, Councillor Halstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just note on page 173 of the report, we refer to investment made in Bass Coast by the Victorian Government. And Councillor Rooks has pointed out some of those projects. I'd like to congratulate them for recognising that Bass Coast is growing much faster than expected, and the need for community facilities is great. With the introduction of cap rates and significant legislative changes of late, we have seen a greater reliance by local governments on the Victorian Government for delivery of these community facilities, and therefore I hope that that investment continues. I would like to ask the officers though, that why the report doesn't mention any investment in Bass Coast by the Australian Government, and has there been any investment by the Australian Government?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, outside of normal operating grants, such as federal assistance grants, the federal government provided direct funding for a number of initiatives in health, education, tourism and environment that totaled approximately $10 million. This includes some of council's priorities, such as the Country University Centre, Recovery for Regional Tourism Program, Council's foreshore erosion work and the federal health package for Bass Coast. But we continue to advocate to the federal government seeking much needed funds for our advocacy project. The report attachment will be amended to include this information.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this report? No? Councillor Whelan, would you like to put it to a vote? All in favour of the recommendation as it reads? Councillors Tassari, Kent, Brooks, Lark, Lacerda, Lang, Halstead, Whelan and Bauer. Carried. Item number H6, Phillip Island and San Remo Visitor Economy Strategy 2035 to be presented by Mr. Box.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide an update to Council on the delivery of the first 5 years of actions for the Phillip Island and San Remo Visitor Economy Strategy 2035 Growing Tourism. This strategy sets our long-term vision for the Phillip Island and San Remo visitor economy, with sustainable growth being the central focus. It's assisted Council, our partners, government agencies and peak industry bodies to attract investment and advocate for better sustainable tourism outcomes. There have been a number of achievements so far, from global sustainable tourism certification to the funding and development of Count's Cultural Centre. It's recommended that Council receive the attached Phillip Island and San Remo Visitor Economy Strategy 5-year report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Box. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendation as it reads? Councillor Halstead, and seconded Councillor Rooks. Councillor Halstead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a comment on this report, and I refer Council to page 70 of the 5-year summary snapshot, where the Sustainable Tourism Accord has been signed by the partners, and those partners are Bass Coast Shire Council, Phillip Island Nature Park, and Destination Phillip Island. The summary goes on to say that the accord will be supported by the steering committee, whose members are also mentioned. And one of those members mentioned is the Department of Environment, Water, Land and Planning. I'd like to appeal to the Department of Environment, Water, Land and Planning and bring some attention specifically to point 2, which speaks partly to seeking enhancement of the lifestyle of the local community, supporting community facilities and enhancing conservation. The Western Port councillors, through council administration, have made representation to secure from DELP for master planning of the San Remo Recreation Reserve, which I believe speaks to community facilities and has been stalled. Also for the reinstatement of the Grantville Foreshore Committee and election of a Foreshore Committee for San Remo, which speaks to conservation and has also been stalled. And for a request by the Phillip Island Astronomy Club for laying of firm ground at the Foots Beach end of the Lions Park in San Remo to allow for the club to have the site internationally certified as dark sky, which speaks to tourism and has also been stalled. All of these projects are supportive in the strategy's objectives, and as the land is Crown land, DELP are the responsible authorities, and therefore council cannot proceed without their support. So I just, although I support the report that's been given, the 5-year review, I am also appealing to DELP to consider these projects that we have attempted through council administration to get off the ground. Otherwise, I think the report's terrific and I'll be supporting the recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Councillor Rooks.
Thanks, Mayor Tessari. So this report goes from for 5 years, from 2016 to 2021. We've still got another 14 or so years before this. We'll try to achieve everything in the Phillip Island and San Remo Visitor Economy Strategy 2035. Having a look at the report, there's a whole range of activities which have been achieved, a whole range that are in progress, and there's a whole range that are not yet achieved. It's understandable with so many years still to go. I'm chair of the Visitor Economy Strategy Community Advisory Board, and assuming council approve this report, I'm looking forward to sharing it with those people who make up that community advisory board. I see them as the experts in this area, and I look forward to hearing their feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just would like to draw councillors' attention to the first page of H6, where it says increasing off-peak visitor expenditure and generating year-round visitation. The unfortunate defeat of F3 just about an hour ago. If we get more visitors on the island, how are we going to cope with that? I do support the report, and I think that I agree with Councillor Rooks that we're going in the right direction, and hopefully we will continue to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? Councillor Whelan.
Just a point that occurs to me is that one of the things that only a passing reference, I think, in the visitor economy strategy was the extension of the visitor economy strategy into other areas. And it's mentioned here about really think there's a need for some more work in that area, and I guess we'll probably do that over time as we work with the likes of Destination Phillip Island, Destination Gippsland. But that has been a key area. And one other point I raised in relation to the global certification, we haven't really made much progress at the seen from bronze, which means you've only commenced the process anyway, and that was about 2 or 3 years ago. Whereas I actually think probably we've done a lot in the area that probably should kick us along that. So I'm wondering if that's still an active pursuit of council to try and get that certification improved. I hope it is, because I think really establishing our credentials as an environmental area, the environment is the economy, is the fundamental thrust of this report and something we shouldn't lose sight of.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? Councillor Halstead, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
Just before we put it to a vote, Mr Mayor, I did wish to congratulate Phillip Island Nature Parks and Destination Phillip Island. They've had a really tough couple of years. It's not been an easy environment for them to work in. A lot of the businesses have been, badly affected, and I think they've been doing a terrific job in trying to support those businesses. So that's just in closing, and I'm happy to put the motion to a vote, or the recommendation to a vote.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads? Councillors Kasari, Kent, Rooks, Lark, Lasserve, Lang, Halstead, Whelan and Bauer. Carried. Item number H7, Destination Phillip Island Agreement, to be presented by Mr Fox.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to enable Council to enter into a 3-year partnership agreement between Council and Destination Phillip Island. Destination Phillip Island is the state recognised regional tourism board for Phillip Island and San Remo, and along with Destination Gippsland, is one of Council's key strategic partners in developing the visitor economy. Our community has a rich history of welcoming visitors from all over the world, and as we've heard, Bass Coast is the local government area most reliant upon the visitor economy. Destination Phillip Island provides much needed strategic direction, industry development, product development and regional marketing for the tourism industry. Council has partnered successfully with Destination Phillip Island in the shaping of our visitor economy since its inception in 2004. And this agreement will extend the partnership and prepare us for the opportunities and challenges of the next 3 years. It's recommended that Council authorise officers to enter into a partnership agreement with Destination Phillip Island. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Fox. Can I have somebody move and second that recommendation as it reads? Councillor Rooks, seconded Councillor Whelan. Councillor Rooks.
Just on a side note, Councillor Whelan, you're hard to hear, by the way, if you could just speak up a little bit. I do turn my volume up to max, but we can't hear you. On this note, thanks, Mr Fox, for that introduction. I think you've covered most things. I do want to mention, as per our ex-mayor, Mayor Rothfield, that behind Alice Springs, we are the Phillip Island being the second most reliant economy on tourism. And that shows the importance that we do work with Destination Phillip Island. They're the people that do all the work with regards to marketing and tourism initiatives to continue bringing people down to our area. And so it's critical that we do have a close relationship with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks, and I've never heard anyone ask Councillor Whelan to speak up, so there you go. Councillor Whelan, but please speak up.
Yes, there you go. It's a first for everything. Thank you, Councillor Rooks. I might just say for the record, my comment last time in the space of the last paper was actually in relation to this one in terms of extending the focus into other areas of it arises from this report. But suffice to say that, yes, Destination Phillip Island operationally do a great job in support of the tourism effort on Phillip Island, San Remo, and also beyond in terms of the liaison with Destination Gippsland. So that's really good. I do note that the government commissioned a regional tourism review, and certainly now is not the time to be really heading down that path, and we need to consolidate, try and work our way out of the situation that the pandemic has left us in. But I know Kim and Pauline do it, and the others, I shouldn't have mentioned any name now, I'm in trouble, but they do a great job. And I think they're very well respected on the island and in that area of business. So I also commend the report.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? No. Councillor Rooks, would you like to put it straight to a vote?
Yes, please.
Put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Kent, Rooks, Clark, Laserve, Lang, Halstead, Whelan and Bauer. Carried. Item number H8, Growing Suburbs Fund, to be presented by Mr Box.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to submit a grant application to the State Government's Growing Suburbs Fund program for the Inverloch to Wonthaggi Trail. Council continues to advocate to all tiers of government for much needed funding and positive change on multiple fronts. Council pursues opportunities that reflect the community's top priorities, consistent with the current council plan and advocacy strategy. This application will deliver key regional community and tourism infrastructure related to our paths, tracks and trails network, building upon recent pathway funding success and provide a significant active transport link between Wonthaggi and Inverloch. This report recommends Council apply to the State Government's Growing Suburbs Fund for $2.7 million for the Inverloch to Wonthaggi Trail and utilise $4.7 million of Council's funds to realise this important project. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Box. Can I have somebody move and second this recommendation as it reads? Councillor Lang, and seconded. Councillor Rooks. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This funding application will work towards putting in a trail that has been sought since about 2016 through the Aspirational Pathways Plan of Council. It's actually, although it's going to be funding a pathway from Inverloch to Wonthaggi, it's better to look at it as a pathway from Cows to Inverloch, because the vision is to join all of the townships through a beautiful and scenic walk and ride path. Council has been quite successful in previous years receiving funding through the Growing Suburbs Fund. If I've done my maths correctly, it's about 4.2 million in the past, maybe more. But it's an excellent project. It seeks to connect these towns more effectively with safer pathways, and it aligns really well with the Aspirational Pathways Plan and other plans to create better cycling infrastructure across the Shire.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Rooks.
Thank you, Mayor Tassari. Yes, this was the #1 priority in the Tracks and Trails list for our Shire. So congratulations to our Shire for getting it underway, assuming this funding application is successful. It's a great project for those two towns. The residents of Inverloch and Wonthaggi can now leave their car at home and they can walk, run, skateboard, jog the 14 Ks from one destination to another. And for the rest of, as Councillor Lang said, for the rest of the people within the Bass Coast Shire, we can also link up now to Inverloch, which is awesome. I live at Ventnor now. I can ride on pathways off-road, assuming this goes ahead all the way to Inverloch. There's a bigger picture as well. It means that should we or when we get the track from Woolamai to Nyora, which will link up to the Great Southern Rail, it means that all people within the major towns of the Bass Coast Shire can join that rail trail. So that's why this was the #1 priority, and it's fantastic that it's going to hopefully go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? Councillor Whelan.
Yeah, I want to sort of build on or acknowledge what Councillor Rooks has said and Councillor Lane. This is really a good project and it's got my full support. But it's the transition in thinking towards this active transport, tracks and trails. And what I was saying before in relation to the economic development strategy, this sort of development has the potential to set us apart. I know people that take their families to the northeast for their holidays because they can get on their bikes and visit a winery and they can go places and they don't have to be getting in the car. So this is part of that transition and really making us a more resilient economy. And it's a healthier lifestyle as well, which couldn't lose sight of any of those sorts of things, as well as a very convivial way to get along. So no, commend it, absolutely.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Would anyone else like to speak? Councillor Loch. Oh, that's 3 times, Councillor Loch.
I just want to reiterate that it is a critical link and a priority in relation to the overall leisure tracks and trails pathway strategy from Cowes to Inverloch. I fully support the project. Other matters, it passes by the international RACV Inverloch Resort. So you have international and regional and interstate visitors coming to a most magnificent resort, able to borrow an RACV bike or an electric bike or whatever, and link into this proposed trail. So there is an international context to it too, I believe, and a major tourism attraction for the future. So I commend the officers for making the application to this particular fund to make it happen.
Thank you, Councillor Loch. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? Yep, Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I fully support the recommendation, and I agree this is the most important link that we can do to complete the trails. I just want to pick Councillor Rook up on one little thing. From Ventnor to Inverloch, there's still lots of areas which are not complete. And even though this is very important, I hope we can get the other tracks and trails up in our project so we can get them done to completely link this to from the Sutherland, from the Penguin Parade even, Ventnor down to there. But I fully support this.
Thank you,
Point of order.
Councillor Bauer. Would any
Point of
Councillor-
order.
Point of order.
I'm not sure if I can comment, but I've ridden from here to Wonthaggi on pathways off-road from
Thank you,
Bednor,
Councillor
so it can
Rooks.
be done.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No. Councillor Lane, would you like to summarise or put straight to a vote?
Put it to a vote. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Kent, Rooks, Lark, Usserve, Lang, Halstead, Whelan and Bauer. Carried. Okay, item number H9, Live for Life Partnership Agreement to be presented by Ms Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council endorsement of the Youth Live for Life Lead Agency Agreement, committing council to a partnership with South Gippsland Shire Council to the Live for Life program until the 31st of December 2023. As councillors are aware, youth mental health is an important issue in Bass Coast and South Gippsland. Youth Live for Life is a not-for-profit health promotion charity with a vision that all rural communities across Australia are empowered to support, improve and invest in young people's mental health and reduce youth suicide. Youth Live for Life is an early intervention model developed specifically for rural communities. Council's contribution to this program would be $30,000. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Kennedy. Can I have somebody move and second this recommendation? Councillor Rooks and seconded Councillor Kent. Councillor Rooks.
Thank you, Mayor Tassari. Yes, youth suicide is an issue within the Bass Coast Shire. It's also an issue statewide. Yesterday, the government just announced, and I'll read from the Age, concern over mental health issues led the Victorian government yesterday to announce a further $22 million in new funding, including $13 million for 20 new pop-up clinics statewide. So it's an issue not just for our Shire, but for the whole state. I'm very pleased that our Shire is going to set up this partnership with South Gippsland Shire and embrace this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm so grateful that we have groups like this who are prepared to be there as a referral agency, and also individuals who are prepared to stand up and be trained in youth mental health. We should all be experts in pointing people towards these experts. We ask people on, are you okay? day. We should be doing it every day. And it's great that we now have another avenue of addressing people's needs and pointing them in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? Councillor Lang?
Just briefly, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This agreement reflects an ongoing partnership and relationship we have with South Gippsland Shire on a number of social and health and wellbeing strategies and plans. South Gippsland Shire also has a very similar demographic to the Bass Coast Shire, which is that we both have young people who are likely to face high levels of social and economic disadvantage. So it's great that we can have this agreement with the South Gippsland Shire and Live for Life.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No. Councillor Rooks, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
Put it to a vote, thanks.
All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Kent, Rooks, Lark, Lacerbe, Lang, Halstead, Whelan and Bauer. Carried. Item number H10, proposed lease Kilcunda Caravan Park, to be presented by Mr. Mack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to recommend a method for establishing a tenant for a new lease for the Kilcunda Caravan Park. It is recommended that Council seek expressions of interest to identify the preferred tenant and undertake the legislative processes to establish a new long-term lease. This process will ensure that Council achieves the best outcome for this site, including maximising income through an open and competitive process. Council will also run a concurrent process advertising the public notice of the proposed lease and inviting submissions from interested persons. It is aimed to have these processes completed by the end of 2021 to ensure that annual site holders have sufficient notice if any changes are to be made. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Can I have somebody move and second that recommendation? Councillor Kent, and seconded Councillor Lacerbe. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. This is nothing more than opening the process for an expression of interest. The caravan park lease has come up again. I'm hoping that we get several applications, that the park deserves to be one of our best parks in the area. And hopefully it'll also be designed in regards to the dinosaur trail and our future skate park there, that it all comes together and fits in together too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Lacerbe.
Nothing further to add, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lacerbe. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No. Councillor Kent, put it straight to a vote.
Straight for a vote.
All in favour of the recommendation. Councillors Tassari, Kent, Brooks, Clark, Lacerbe, Lang, Halstead, Whelan and Bauer. Carried. Item number H11, Bass Coast Financial Hardship Policy, to be introduced by Mr. Mack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to recommend an enhanced financial hardship policy to Council for approval. Council's financial hardship policy was last reviewed and adopted in March 2020. In May 2020, Council adopted a COVID-19 financial hardship policy to provide enhanced financial assistance to impacted businesses and residential ratepayers who are experiencing hardship as a result of the pandemic. In May 2021, the Victorian Ombudsman completed a review of Council's financial hardship policies across the state. Officers have incorporated key aspects of the existing policies and recommendations from the Ombudsman report into an enhanced financial hardship policy included with this report and is recommended to Council for adoption. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendations as they read? Councillor Whelan, and seconded Councillor Bauer. Councillor Whelan.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this is bringing our policy into line. I understand from the Ombudsman report that our previous policy stood up pretty well, but there were a couple of generic observations, and one of those was the opportunity to be able to waive rates in extreme financial hardship situations, and that's what this does, and I think that's important. Another thing it does is allow ratepayers who are age pensioners to be able to defer that or put their rates off as a charge on the land, and their estate will pay it. ultimately, I guess. So I think it's bringing our policy up to date, making it more robust and in accord with those expectations of those monitoring authorities. And I think that's a good thing. So I think it's a good report.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I fully support this measure. Having a small business in Melbourne and knowing how tough it is under these COVID conditions and how it translates back into the family unit and people have homes and all sorts of other hardships with COVID. I think this is a wonderful initiative. It's bringing it forward from last year in many ways, and I fully support it, and the report speaks for itself. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No? Councillor Whelan, put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Kent, Brooks, Lark, Lasser, Lang, Halstead, Whelan and Bauer. Carried. Okay, that brings us to our stat reports. Can I have somebody move and second that agenda items I1 to I4 be considered as a block? Councillor Bauer and seconded Councillor Whelan. All in favour. Councillors Tassari, Kent, Brooks, Lark, Lasser, Lang, Halstead, Whelan and Bauer. Carried. Would anybody like to speak to any of the reports? Councillor Whelan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to point out in I3 Contracts Award Report the construction drawings at Kerbside Beach to an H.1 MAW Civil Marine Proprietary Limited at a contract sum of $700,805. A lot of trouble with
You only get 3 attempts at it, Councillor Whelan.
708. Oh,
No,
well, there we go. So I'll have to read it for themselves. I just don't know how to pronounce that. Isn't that ridiculous? And look, I want to say, and Ms. Kennedy's team that's worked on this, their community engagement on this project has been excellent. And I believe that it was reported to me by the local people that the scrapers are down there and they're working on this project at the moment. So that's excellent news. I know a lot of people in the area will be delighted to see this. And also, we're really looking forward to that revetment going in later this year and early next year, so that in fact it does shore up that gap in the rock wall that's there, so that in fact those properties will be protected and in accord with the rest of that part of the shoreline. And we're really looking forward to the construction road on top being left to fill out that pathway through the Cobham Road as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. $700,809.34.
Thank you. I don't know why that was so hard, but it was.
Councillor Lark.
Thank you, Mayor. It's always a surprise to me that the Audit Committee appears to apply very little detailed examination and or concern for certain financial matters. I'm not talking about the year-end financial statements or whatever the statutory requirements. For example, the significant carryover of capital projects not delivered in accordance with budgets, tens of millions in fact. There doesn't seem to be strong analysis and feedback in that arena, and that does surprise me substantially. And it's evident again in the latest report lodged with the statutory report bundle.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Would anyone else like to speak to any of the reports? No? Okay, can I have somebody move and second that the recommendations attached in the agenda items I1 to I4 be adopted? Councillor Bauer and seconded Councillor Whelan. All in favour? Councillors Tassari, Kent, Brooks, Lasser, Lang, Halstead, Whelan and Bauer. And against? And abstain? Councillor Lark. Carried. Okay, brings us to urgent business, and I understand Councillor Halstead, you have urgent business. Can I have somebody move and second that we accept Councillor Halstead's urgent business? Can I have somebody move and second? Councillor Kent, second, and Councillor Lasser. All in favour? Councillors Tassari, Kent, Lark, Lasser, Lang, Halstead, Whelan and Bauer, and against? And abstain? Councillor Rooks. So Councillor Halstead, can you please summarise your business before I get it seconded?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We're going to put it up on screen, Councillor. Sorry, Councillor Halstead, if you could just summarise it once we put it up on screen without speaking to it.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is about outdoor dining permits that have just recently been issued by council. Is that enough, or do you need me to?
That's plenty for now while it's on the screen. Can I have somebody second that, please? Councillor Whelan. Councillor Halstead, you may now speak to your urgent business.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Did you want me to read the motion out or just speak
Yes,
to
please.
it?
That'd be good if you could.
Can we
put it
just
back
put
in.
Yeah.
We're like a well-oiled machine.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So I'm moving that council officers prepare a report for the October 21 council meeting, presenting options and costs for the waiving and refunding of footpath trading fees for the 21-22 financial year. 2, any fees currently due are not required to be paid until council has considered this report. 3, the report considers options to support outdoor dining during the upcoming summer period. And 4, council seeks funding from the state government to support street activation and outdoor dining activities over the summer period in our key townships.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. I'll just ask for that to be put down now. Okay, now please go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, this one's a bit, or has been a bit of an emotional one for me, because I went to visit one of our local cafes in San Remo in the last couple of weeks, and they had just received their renewal for outdoor dining. It was not a huge fee. I think under normal conditions, they probably would have just paid the fee and obviously used the facilities. But at the moment, you know, all our businesses, or most of our, especially hospitality businesses, have been closed and not able to use their outdoor dining. So they're not producing any funds from that usage, and they've now received permits that are requiring them to pay for being able to use those facilities. Now, this particular business owner, when talking to me, welled up with tears, and it sort of pulled at my heartstrings, because as a business owner myself and a business owner in hospitality, I really do sympathise with the pain that this industry has experienced in the last 2 years. I will accept that the government has assisted us, and without that assistance, when I say government, at both levels, Australian government and state government, and without the assistance that they have provided, I can pretty much guarantee, councillors, that we would have no hospitality business left. So I appreciate, obviously, the help of the Australian government, the Victorian government, and also local council. Bass Coast has done what they can to support our businesses. But I'm just asking that we again look at these outdoor dining permits. Look, a lot of them have been brought in since COVID-19 because these businesses have had no other option. If they don't have the outdoor dining, then they can't run their business. So I just ask that councillors consider that, and officers consider that as part of their report. They weren't expecting this. They've been operating with indoor facilities for many years. They've been forced to go out on the street due to COVID-19, and now we're asking them to also pay for that, the pleasure of doing that. So
Well, we've lost you, Councillor Halstead. We can't hear you. Councillor Halstead? She's not taking breath.
Not hearing either.
She's on mute.
No.
Councillor Halstead, I'm sure that was a fantastic summary right at the end, but we lost you just at the end. And you are on green on my screen, so I'm not sure what's going on. I think we heard enough of your message. She's on green on mine. We'll move forward.
She's red on mine.
She's come back. Councillor Halstead, can I just clarify that you can hear and we can hear you, please?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I did drop out and come back in right at the crucial moment too.
We heard you up until that they've been forced to go outside, and they have done so. So we got your message pretty much loud and clear, Councillor Halstead. Are you happy for me to move forward?
Yeah, I'll just add that I at the end, I just wanted to say a big shout out to all those small businesses in Bass Coast who have done it tough. Hold your heads high, soldier on. We're all, as a council, really proud of what you've achieved over the last 18 months to 2 years. And I am forever grateful to have had you there for my morning coffee. And I look forward to continuing to support you with my morning coffees and anything else I can do that would offer support. So thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Councillor Whelan.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Halstead for being very active on this issue. We all get people approaching us in distress on these matters, but it's good that you raised it when you did, and it's led to this initiative, so that's good. The outdoor dining initiative, it's sad that it needed COVID, I guess, for us to really do it to the extent we have, but it's been brilliant. And I don't know where I read it. I read it in the last couple of days as people saying we want to keep it and that sort of thing. One of the newspapers was the advertiser. So look, I absolutely support that. I think we're on a winner there. The issue here is with COVID, you can't be asking people to trade in a different way and then whacking a fee on them. So I think, you know, the spirit of the thing is that we waive it until such time as COVID is over, and then have a look at how we best support our businesses as well. But like you, Councillor Halstead, I really enjoy being able to sit down at that cafe and have a coffee and have my lunch or whatever else. And it's an incredible, and not to mention the other traders also that use the street. So they're all really important parts of our economy. I've also been lobbied this week by a cafe owner, restaurant owner, who's quite distressed, looking for something to be able to help get his staff involved and back working and that sort of thing. And I'm pleased to say that our officers have been great in working with him to resolve that matter as well. So no, I think it's a great initiative, and I'll certainly be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this urgent business? Councillor Lasser.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, I think when COVID first started, one of the activities the officers did was help some of these businesses set up out on the street. And so I think by this urgent business, it just reinforces that. And by, you know, offering that waiver, I think that it's a really good initiative again from council. So, you know, I think that's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lasser. Would anyone else like? Councillor Lark.
Just a quick mention for the Inverloch traders. Inverloch was very successful with their outdoor strategy, and I'm very pleased that council officers are looking at this coming summer well in advance to do some planning and negotiation with traders in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this urgent business? No? Okay, Councillor Halstead, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
You know it's never straight to a vote for me, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to catch on what Councillor Whelan's input there with the atmosphere that these outdoor dining areas have created. And I think it was reported in one of the local papers that it has created a really vibrant atmosphere with people really enjoying that outdoor dining. So personally, I'd love to see it as a more permanent feature, whether council can look at ways that we can assist in making it that way through this report that'll come back to council. I think we need to do everything we can to support these businesses into the future, and you know, the atmosphere that it creates is great for mental health. So yeah, so I'm happy to put it to a vote, and thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. All in favour of the notice of motion that Councillor Halstead's put forward? Councillors Tassari, Kent, Rooks, Lark, Lasserve, Lang, Whelan and Bauer. Carried. I'm going to break my own rule and just make one comment on that before I close the meeting. And can I just say to all businesses out there that this is a perfect example of, if you are struggling and you are doing it tough, give one of your councillors a shout out, because this is all eventuated quite quickly, and we do know you are doing it tough, and we are there to help where we can help. You know, I know we can't always get a result like this, but when we can, this is a great result. So thank you, Councillor Halstead, for bringing it to us all, and for everybody jumping on board so quickly. So well done. Can I just announce now that that brings us almost to the end of our live stream part of the meeting. So our next councillor meeting will be held on the 22nd of September 2021, commencing at 3:30, and it will be open to the public via live stream. So there is a motion put forward that the meeting. So that concludes our live stream part of the meeting. I need to put forward now that the meeting will be closed to members of the public pursuant section 66 of the Local Government Act 2020 to consider an item or items as they deal with F, personal information, being information which is released would result in the unreasonable disclosure of information about any person or their personal affairs. A, council business information, being information that would prejudice the council's position in commercial negotiations if prematurely released. B, in legal privileged information, being information to which legal professional privileges or client legal privileges applies. G, private commercial information, being information provided by a business, commercial or financial undertaking that, if released, would unreasonably expose the business, commercial or financial undertakings to disadvantage. Or H, confidential meeting information, being the records of meeting closed to the public under section 66/2 part A. Can I have somebody move and second that motion, please? Councillor Lang, and seconded Councillor Kent. All in favour? Councillors Tassari, Kent, Rooks, Lark, Lasserve, Lang, Whelan, Bauer, and against? And abstain? Okay, we'll vote again. Councillor Halstead was away in her mind. So all in favour of that motion that I just read, Councillors Tassari, Kent, Rooks, Lark, Lasserve, Lang, Whelan, Bauer and Halstead. Carried. So that concludes our live streaming of the meeting. So I thank you all for watching, as I thank you all for every time you tune in and watch our meetings. This meeting will now be closed to public and will end today's live stream. So I now call the meeting adjourned, and if we could just pause and wait for the voice above.